What's going on, guys? This is another episode of the Mortgage Pro Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Braun, and on this episode, we have a very special guest, Mr. Jason Frazier. He doesn't need much of an introduction, but for those of you who don't know who Jason is, he is a marketing genius. On this episode, we go over his extensive background in the industry. We go over marketing, obviously, social media, impact, mindset, just a bunch of awesome topics, and I hope you guys enjoy. All right, we're with a very special guest today, Mr. Jason Frazier. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
Doing great. Like I was telling you off camera, day 4 or 5 of 75 hard, and let's just say I'm going through it. However, I'm going to bring as much energy as possible, and I'm excited to talk to you. So that helps as well. But for the people listening that don't know who you are, I always like to start off by asking everybody, like, how'd you get into the mortgage business? Because it's not something that you grow up and say, oh, I want to get into banking, right? I remember there was a career day, and in middle school, and one of the kids' fathers came in and was just like, I work at Chase, and everybody like tuned out. You know, it was just not anything that any kid wanted to talk about or listen to somebody talk about. But yeah, so how did you get in the business? What was, give me like a chronological order of the different roles that you've played, and then we'll talk a little bit more about what you're doing today currently, which is exciting.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, well, first, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. Looking forward to our conversation today. But it's funny because it's right on. It's like, how did you get in the industry? Oh, a friend. I was doing something else. A friend said, "Hey, I have yet to meet someone that is like, hey, I went into mortgage banking. Like that is where I wanted to go. That's what I wanted to be." It all starts from somewhere else, which are great stories, and that's actually what's great about our industry. So, but me, I'm actually a second generation mortgage professional. So I was born into the industry. So my and again, apologies for people that know this story because I tell it all the time, when I do interviews and stuff. But like, so my mom was one of the first women mortgage CEOs of a mortgage bank in the country. And so literally I was in a baby carrier 3 days after I was born, sitting on my mom's desk. So that's how far back I go. In fact, it's funny. So I grew up in the industry. My mom always told me not to get into the mortgage industry, and she, which I didn't listen to one time. I didn't listen to my mom, but so I went a different path though. So I went into technology. That was kind of what I wanted to do. That was my role. In fact, actually, law enforcement was my original path. And when I was doing my AOJ in Oregon, at the time I was going to go into federal service, and looking at the degrees in the past, computer science was one of them. So I decided, all right, yeah, I'll take it. And it just stuck. It was very exciting. It was interesting. I like putting puzzles together. I like solving problems. So computer science is just kind of right up my alley, and being creative. And at the time, this was like when Microsoft was like in the news, Windows 95, like that whole deal. So people were making a ton of money. And so I was kind of like, federal service, a lot of money, like doing something that I really had a passion for. It was kind of an easy choice. So fast forward, I got into technology. I'm an engineer by education and by trade. And as I was going up, I came up in Silicon Valley, venture capital technology startups. I worked for Peter Thiel, who, if you guys don't know, is founder of PayPal, with Elon Musk and a few other members. If you Google PayPal Mafia, you'll see a bunch of people and everything, like LinkedIn, Yammer, YouTube, Yelp. Basically, all of this stuff came out of the PayPal people, and so that was the world that I was living in and was from. And so in 2009, I took a sabbatical. I didn't really need to work. I made a lot of money working for Peter, and so I tried to do like a mini retirement, because at that time I'm a grinder, right? I'm a workaholic. I work all of the time, and I was burnt out, right? And so that lasted about 2 weeks of playing golf and just bumming around. And I had to get back into it. So I started consulting, and I started consulting for my family's company, which, a mortgage company. At the time, owners of one of the oldest mortgage brands in the country, going back to 1887. Started founded in Berkeley, California. So I was consulting at the time from a technology perspective, and they just needed a lot of help. And after about 6 months, they asked if I wanted to, come on full time and help, kind of drive their growth and where they wanted to go. So I thought it'd be fun. I had some family members working there. Hey, join the family company, working with my mom. And so I thought that'd be fun. So I started that at end of '09. And then 2019, I went out on my own as a consultant and doing my own coaching programs and stuff like that. During that time, sales executive, marketing executive, technology executive, held all three hats at the same time. And, I went out and just focused more on the marketing side, because that's where I really discovered a passion, and I had fun doing it. And so I just kept kind of going down that route. And, through that time, I've consulted with a lot of companies, some of the biggest lenders and brands in the country. Some of the top 10 lenders. I've worked for Cardinal Financial on the wholesale side, EPM, VicFin, and now I'm at the EVP of growth at LeadPops.
And now, so first off, I do relate with you on that crossroads, right? Where you're taking the exams to become a civil servant. Me personally, I was an EMT. I volunteered in a volunteer fire department in Long Island. But I put my name on the list to join FDNY. And maybe a few months after putting my name on the list, I got a job in the mortgage business. One of those weird stories. Hey, some guy that I met that asked me if I wanted a job, and I said yes, and I didn't even know what he did for work, and I just signed an employment package. The next thing you know, I was in the mortgage business, telemarketing. But so that happened a few months after I put my name on a list to join FDNY. And my whole thing was, the mortgage industry for me was just a job. I was never going to stay in it. I was just waiting for FDNY to call me. And once FDNY called me, I was about a year into the industry, and I was at a crossroads. Do I take safety and stability and the pension and put on a uniform every day, or do I do the complete opposite, which is the mortgage business, right? And I was lucky enough to have people around me that showed me that I could be successful, even though I didn't fully believe it yet. And let's just face it, civil servants don't get paid a lot of money, and I wanted to make what I deemed to be a lot of money. So I do relate with that. Now, it's always interesting talking to somebody like you, because it's not like you're an originator yourself, but you are like a tech marketer. Like, I think one of the most brilliant minds in that space within our industry, because I've heard you speak at multiple events. I follow you on social media, and I watch everything very closely, and I can tell you're the real deal. So before I ask you, some different nuggets that you can give to the originators that are listening to this podcast, what are you doing now at LeadPops? And explain who LeadPops is.
Yeah. Well, first, thanks. I really appreciate that. It's, look, I'm not an ego guy, but first and foremost, I want to make an impact in this industry and help people. And so just, I really do appreciate that. No problem. It really does mean a lot. And, as far as LeadPops, so I joined there in October. So what I do is, it's a couple things, right? We're evolving a little bit. So it's actually a really good time to talk about LeadPops, because we are changing. So if people remember, if you're a LeadPops customer, or you're thinking about LeadPops, or maybe you're a customer in the past or whatever, LeadPops in these next, 60 days, 90 days is going to be a complete, 360 from where they started. So when Andrew brought me on in October, it was with the idea of obviously growing the business, but helping him evolve LeapOps into what it needs to be. And so my job there is a few things, but ultimately is to help lead the teams, to help Andrew, to be, to be a sounding board, because I've had a lot of experience, different verticals, different, different roles, to be there to assist him and to be a guy that, he could count on to get things done. And outside of growth, but help our clients too. Because one thing, I'm also a coach at Next Level, and I've done coaching before and trainings and setting up full on educational systems and stuff to help law officers compete and win. And so what outside of what I'm doing from a top down perspective, I'm also getting in the weeds with our clients to help them with marketing, help them with strategy, help them with building funnels and ways they could do it, and creating blueprints and, just success paths for them. So it's not just helping LeapOps grow, but helping our clients, because ultimately, I'm a competitive guy, so I want to dominate. I want LeapOps. We really don't have any competitors, and I'm not saying that as like, hey, no one could touch us sort of thing. We're different, right? Yes, we have is there other people that do websites? Sure, right? Are there other people that do lead generation? Sure, but we have a complete package of different different technology and platforms that other people do not have. We also have, in my opinion, the biggest mortgage intelligence or industry intelligence out of any company out there that may be in our space, just because of what I bring of being on that, or at least leading teams on the origination side when it came to consumer direct. A lot of people don't know that. I used to be in sales prior to, getting it. Like, one of my first jobs was as a sales manager. The sales isn't something that I enjoy doing, but it's something that I do very well when I have to. Right. And I actually did go through NMLS and do all that stuff, mostly because to show loan officers that it wasn't that hard to pass, because I came in right when licensing started to happen. Right. And we lost 45% of our originators to banks, and just they couldn't pass the test. And so I just did it, just show them like, hey, I have no origination loan officer experience, and I'm able to do it and pass the test and do all that stuff, so you can too. But so I think just through everything I've done with from an origination standpoint, from a leadership, through marketing, through driving business and stuff like that, it allows us to, and also being on the enterprise level from a mortgage vendor side, it really allows us to understand what originators go through, right? It really really helps us to understand the industry, and not just people that really have no idea what the day-to-day is like, or really have no idea what the plight and the challenges of origination. Also, executives at lenders through margin compression, down cycles, up cycles, all of that. So really that's why we're different. But what are we doing with that? Is we are creating a new evolution. It's not widely known. Some people in our inner circle do know, but I'll say it here on the podcast. We will be changing. There's a big announcement that we're making on March 15th. So next month. And that's going to be about the new world of LeapOps. That's going to change a lot of stuff. And so we're going to take all of that intelligence, the expertise, everything that Andrew's built and the team has built there way longer than I've been there, all that they built, and bring that into 2023 with a whole new way of being basically the only true value add to originators in every aspect of their business. Is going to help them generate revenue, but not only that, but create a category called marketing revenue optimization to really increase the sum of your income, right? So, and all sounds great. It's really the proof in the pudding. So we've been beta testing and running these things in, more in stealth mode the last few months. Great results that we've had. So we're ready to kick it in the high gear and bring it out to, our entire client base. We're doing things that nobody else is doing in our industry. And honestly, we think that we're going to be able to do stuff that no one else is capable of doing, because everyone's thinking about lead generation and sales and marketing in a totally, and in our view, in a backwards way. And I'm not saying that we're different, because I've thought about it in that same way too. So it's it's totally understandable why the industry does. But I think if anything, what 2022 taught us, and going into here with what happened to lenders, the layoffs and everything else, is that we cannot continue to do Groundhog Day over and over again, because it's not good for the consumer because it reduces choice and their options. But more importantly, it's not good for the people in the industry to really grow a business when it swings so quickly just because of a couple months. So with the pandemic and everything else, there's positives that happen from that for our industry, because our industry couldn't just stand pat and go with the status quo, and the people that did aren't here anymore. And
Right.
and unfortunately, that's Darwin, right? Like, survival of the fittest. And so, with what Leap Hops is doing, we're not going to be one of those cautionary tales. We are going to be leading the charge, and that's not going to be for everyone. It's going to be for the people that really understand how to make this a career. Like you mentioned, like, hey, this wasn't going to be, this is a career for me. Like I decided to plant my flag in this industry to continue on the legacy that my mom created. And so, together with Andrew and the team at Leap Hops, we're going to build something different and build something better. And we're excited with everything that will be rolling out here pretty soon.
Well, you guys heard it here first, right? I'm very, very happy that here on whatever episode of the Mortgage Pro podcast we are on, Jason Frazier dropped the big Leap Hops announcement that the whole industry doesn't know yet, correct?
Yep, correct.
All right, so I'm proud of them.
Maybe like 10 people, maybe like 10 other like our clients. Yeah, so yeah.
So I'm excited for what you guys are putting together. Obviously, it's something that I guess we'll need to see and figure out more about. But I know from experience and from just observing, whenever anybody has impact in mind and truly cares about the people within that space, good things happen. It's like very simple, right? Something else that you were saying reminds me of the old saying, like, the more people you help, the more successful you'll be. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think from based on everything that you're saying, I'm looking forward to seeing that come to life. But you mentioned Next Level, so tell me a little bit about what Next Level is. Again, most of our listeners are originators, so I think any little thing that we can plug them into is that will be of value. I'm excited to talk about. So talk about Next Level and your involvement with them.
Yeah, so I've been involved with Next Level since, trying to figure out. I think it was the end of 2019. I think is when I got. I mean, I'd known Shane for a while,
right?
But they invited me to one of their masterminds to come in and speak, and that's how you and I met as well, and so Next Level is look, you could call it a coaching program. We call it a community. Coaching is an element of it, but Next Level really is just a community of like-minded mortgage professionals that want something different, right? And so I think with the difference between, and look, I've messed with a lot of different coaching programs from the core and just a ton of others. And again, they all have their coaching is about fit, right? So there isn't like it's you can't go out there and say, oh, that coaching program sucks, right? It may suck for you. It may not be a good fit. There's a lot of people. I could find 10 people that think the core is crap, and I could find 10 people that it changed their life. I'm sure I could find 10 people that think Next Level is crap, and 10 people that think Next Level it changed their life. I'm one of those people on the ladder. And so what I would say is when it comes to looking at these programs, the difference between Next Level is one is that you're dealing with active originators, right? So you're like, for example, look, we have a lot of coaches, all of them. I want to say, I think I'm one of the outliers that's not an originator as a coach, but if you're an originator and you're having challenges, let's say with like when appraisals are happening, right? Appraisals were, all that stuff. Like if you go to your coach, all they could tell you is like anecdotal evidence or experience share from someone else in the group or someone else on their team, right? In Next Level, you could coach with someone that's dealing with that same exact challenge, and then you can figure out how they personally overcame it, and they could guide you through, right? Coaching isn't always about like instructing and telling someone what to do. Coaching is also about walking with them, right? And so that's one thing that I liked about Next Level is in our industry. Look, you got a lot of people that are awesome. You got a lot of people, that aren't. One of the things I like to say is the best thing about this industry is the people. The worst thing about this industry is the people. So like, it's both, right? It's a little bit of a contradiction. But with Next Level, and you could probably attest to this too, we really don't have like a lot of like just like people that are like you don't like, right? I mean, everyone, not that everyone's best friends, but like everyone's generally.
Let me think. Hold on. No.
Yeah, other than Shane, right? Yeah, no, no, but like there's just really good people, right? And everyone's trying to do the right thing. Everyone's trying to do it. And where I think Next Level differs is we don't have a one size fits all program to make you into the originator that we think you need to be, right? Our agenda is your success. We want you to be the best version of yourself as an originator that makes you happy, right? Like we have some people that are like, man, I want to make like 1 million, 2 million, like they want to just set the world on fire. We got some people are like, hey, I'm okay. I just want to be steady making like 80 to 100,000. And that's where I'm happy and stuff. Fantastic. We're going to give you the tools on how to do that. So the thing is about difference with us is you get to choose what your path is going to be. And then you get to decide whether you may not even need coaching at all. You just want to be part of the community and learn from others. And I think that's one of the special things about us is that we have all these like side groups and friendships and relationships with people that help us do whatever we need to do without even have to pay money to like coach, right? Like, so, it's incredibly inexpensive to be part of the community. Even even if you want to be like the pro level, it's still pretty inexpensive if you do, 1 or 2 loans based off of what you learn, which you will if you commit to it and execute. It pays for itself, right? And so, with Next Level, that's the different. You have active originators. It's all community focused. It isn't. There is no agenda of like recruiting. There is no agenda of like affiliate relationships or any of this other garbage that a lot of groups unfortunately get to because look, they're trying to make money, right? This is America. It's it's just what we do, right? And to each their own. However, one thing that we don't ever want to perceive, and this is why, like, I get offers to be an affiliate and sell all this stuff. If I don't know the people, if I've never used the product, I don't talk about it. And so when I talk about something or I talk about a CRM or a tech or marketing and stuff like that, I don't get 1 cent from anyone, right? And it's because I want to be a trusted source in this industry. So when someone asks me their opinion about something, I could tell them straight up, like, hey, it's good, or just say, hey, look, I've never had any experience with that. However, what I've heard is a positive. Even if it's contrary to something that I don't, well, with one exception, that's Encompass, right? That's a piece of crap. But other than that, I'm pretty agnostic across the board of
I'm looking at Encompass right now on my screen. one screen is Jason Frazier, and then the other screen is Encompass.
Is my arch nemesis from years in this industry. But I will say, because there are people in there that unfortunately abuse kind of like their standing, they're influencers within the industry. People believe them, and they end up, because they're getting paid, they end up talking about it. Because it's very interesting that all of a sudden they don't talk about something when there's no longer any money changing hands. And so now, not to say that I don't have companies that pay me as like a consultant or an advisor, and I always put that out there, let them know. But the thing is, I said, look, I was talking about them prior to that, and I will be talking about them as long as they continue like supporting, being there for the originator and doing what they should be doing. Then I will always support those companies if they help move this industry forward, if they help an originator do more deals, if they help the consumer experience be better, then I am on their side. I am someone that's an advocate for that. Because I have a passion for the people in here. A lot of people don't understand that it's incredibly hard as an originator, especially if you're the main breadwinner, to not have any safety net, right? Meaning, like, if you don't hunt, then you don't eat, and neither does your family. You don't pay your mortgage, you don't pay, utilities and bills and everything else. It's an incredibly tough position to be in, and so my job is to make that as easy as possible, right? With obviously still need to work for it, but at the end of the day, like, my job is to create opportunities for originators, right? And it's something that I love doing. It's something that I've been very effective and good at over the years. And it's, like you mentioned, following me, that's kind of how I made a name and a brand for myself by doing that. And so, you know, with Next Level, you know, it's the perfect home for me because it allows me to do what I do. It's very candid and blunt, and it allows me to kind of take off my, you know, I'm a big sports guy, and I grew up playing sports. And so like on the team, there is no hiding, you know what I mean? Like, so like, that's what I like about Next Level is like, look, if you're only going to hurt yourself, and I'm not going to force someone to do something that they don't want to do. Either you want to do it or you don't. But at the end of the day, Next Level is about making someone the best version of what they want to be, not what we think they should be.
And I love that. And I mean, you said, you know, anything that is going to help this industry, whether it's the consumers or the people within it, I'm behind. And that's really what this whole podcast was about. Another like similarity with this podcast and Next Level is like, this is the FUBU of the mortgage industry, for us, by us. Like, I'm an active originator. I just left 2 closings. I have Encompass in front of me right now. I'm not some talking head that's going to try and sell you something or doesn't really know what we're talking about. So I'm glad that you brought up those things, because those are a part of my like key values. Like, even if it makes money, I'm not interested if it doesn't sit right with me. And even if it's fun to talk about or, you know, the next trending thing, if I'm not doing it, I'm not going to talk about it. Right.
Yeah.
So that's super important. I think we're on the same page as far as that goes. Now, let's talk about marketing and tech and what the loan officer can do every single day to build their business. Right. As I keep saying, most of our listeners are originators that want to grow. You know, they're not just tuning into a mortgage specific podcast for fun. I don't think any of us are doing that. Although I love this industry, right? I think what would you recommend? Let's say if I have no marketing, I'm not on social media, and I want to start to dive into that space to grow my business. Maybe I've been in the business 10 years. Maybe I just got started, but where do I start when it comes to my marketing and my social media journey?
Look, that's a great question. It's one I get quite a bit. And look, it's different. The answer is that there is no like carte blanche answer, right? Like, it's different for everyone depending, but here's where you start. One is you have to start with your mindset, right? And so you got to understand there's only 3 things that you control, right? And that is your mindset, your reactions, and your actions, right? That's the only 3 things that you're going to control, you know, especially in a market like this. So if you aren't on social media, you're not doing all of that you're not doing all that stuff. The first thing you need to do is you need to understand yourself a little bit and say, like, why aren't you on there? Whether it's like, hey, I'm just getting started and now like I bought into it, so I'm good. All right, fine, fantastic. But here's what I found, right? Because I was when I started getting into marketing, like, I was one of those people that didn't want to be on video. I didn't want to do all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. I actually made my brand on Snapchat, right? Where I was like in articles, I was on Market Watch in an article, USA Today, Yahoo Fight. Like I built a huge brand for myself using Snapchat, right? And this goes back to 2015, 2016, right? Like that's how I started. But I'll tell you, and you know, we were talking about 75 hard at the beginning before we went live, is this. You have to, and this isn't like, this is binary, right? This is, you know, binary 1 or 0, on or off. You have to have a non-negotiable commitment to execute, right? That's first and foremost. So that's how you get started. If you do not, it doesn't matter. I could give you the blueprint. I could do it all for you. I could do everything for you. If you do not have that, you will not be successful, right? Anyone that's been successful in doing anything, whether it's like understanding sales, or, you know, marketing, or whatever it happens to be, planning, negotiations, you know, objections, all of that stuff. Like, all of them decided at one point, like, hey, this is non-negotiable. I'm going to learn this. I'm going to be the best at this. I'm going to be effective at doing this. If you do not have that, nothing else matters. Your mindset is your foundation. And if your foundation is shaky, anything you build on top is going to fall down, right? Period. So that's where you get started, is you got to find that mindset. You got to find what drives you. You got to understand that action comes before motivation, not the other way around. You don't get motivated, then take action. You may be inspired. Motivation will not keep you going. Action is what keeps you going, right?
Guys, if you've ever watched Brad Lee's Dropping Bombs podcast, this is where he would click the bomb button. So I should get one of those. I'll figure out how to do it. I'm not technically savvy, but that right there, I mean, you could turn off the podcast and that's what it's the truth, man. I've been doing social media I'm younger, right? So I'm 27 years old. I got in the business when I was 20. I've been doing social media since it came out, as a young person, not in the business. So for me, it was a very natural, like, okay, this makes sense to do it for my business. But everybody's asking for and it's funny because I asked the question like I didn't know the correct response, which is what you gave. There's no magic pill, right? And there's tons of different ways to do this. There's tons of different platforms. Do you need to be on every single one? No, I don't care what Gary Vee says, but what you need is consistency and the ability to execute over and over and over again. So I'm so glad that you brought that up, but please continue.
Yeah, no, it's just, look, I'm glad you brought up consistency, right? It's consistency is going to beat perfection, right? And a lot of people want to make things perfect. So that's another piece of advice is don't try to be perfect. Just trying to get it done, right? Now, again, not at the expense of quality, right? And look, if you're just getting started, you're going to suck for a while, right? Your videos are going to suck as you learn. Your content's probably going to suck. There's just a lot of things that are not going to be good. If you go back to when I started, right? Like my first, videos, YouTube and all that other stuff are freaking awful, right? Like, I mean, they're just not great. And so it's, you gotta be generous with yourself, knowing that you're going to make mistakes. It's going to take time. You got to be in it for it's a long game. Like you're not going to start posting on social media, then all of a sudden, like you're a hit, right? Like it can take, 6, 9, 12, 18 months. I know some people that are very big, and I hate the term influencers, but that's what other people would call them. They are experts. They are great at what they do. So I'll just call them experts instead of influencers. But there's two big ones in real estate and mortgage that struggled for a long time, and other people would have given up, and they stayed with it. And now, they're all over the place, speaking across the country. They're still in the business. They're still training. They're doing everything. They've created a great brand for themselves because they stay consistent and they didn't give up. It's like that image of like two miners, right? Two tunnels on top of each other. That guy's like, oh, I'm giving up, but he didn't know he was one swing away from breaking through and discovering gold, right? That's the thing, is you got to choose your heart, right? That's something that, a lot of people talk about it. You got to choose it. It's not easy. It's going to be difficult. Success is hard to get, but you got to decide if you're in this for the long term or, for short-term gain, right? And you have to be like, it took me. So for example, guys, and look, I'm not trying to equate myself to any of these other people, but I didn't start getting into this until 2015, 2016. I'm glad you talked about Gary Vaynerchuk, because it was his book, Crush It, that was gifted to me from someone. I had never heard of Gary Vee in my life, right? Didn't know that dude. I read that book and I'm like, oh man, this guy knows, this is great. Started following him. I got a chance to meet him in San Diego at Social Media Marketing World, where he was the ending keynote, and he stayed after like 2.5 hours to talk to anyone and everyone that wanted. This is before he really became like big. I mean, people knew him. He was popular, but he wasn't as big as he was today, right? And this was back when you could probably get him to speak for like 50 grand, right? As opposed to like 250 that it is now. But he, he talked to everyone and was screen generous. And, him and Brian Solis, another guy, both of them that, took time to talk to me. And that's why I decided to go all in on what I was doing. Fast forward to 2019, and I was speaking at his Agent 2021 conference, right? This is one that Ryan Serhant spoke at, Chris Smith. I mean, I'm talking like top of the top notch people, speaking at this conference and being a part of that, and being with Gary Vee in the back room of Miami Gardens Stadium, and just like the whole experience was some of the best in the industry. And I'm looking around this room and saying, like, I've seen all of these people like on stage. I've seen all these people on YouTube and stuff like that. And I'm a part of it. Like, I'm a part of the program. I'm with all these other people. Like, my name's in there, connected with Gary Vee and all that other stuff. So like but that took to get to me. That's when I looked at it and I looked around and I said, man, like I finally achieved. Look, that wasn't like my ultimate objective or goal. It was one of something I wanted to do because I knew it was going to get to where I was going. But that took 3 years, right? 3 years of doing something.
Nobody sees that.
That nobody saw the struggles, that me like wanting to give up, or me looking at, doing something and getting no views, no likes, no comments, no nothing, and keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it. And so, for those that are getting started, one is you have to be in it for the long game. You have to be consistent with it. Be generous with yourself because your stuff's going to suck in the beginning. And it's different for everyone, right? Like, I've seen and I've seen a lot of people give up, right? And they had something special in them. It's just they didn't have the fortitude to go through with it. And it's no ding on them. Not everyone's cut out. This is a tough business. This industry is not for the weak. Doing what I do isn't for the weak, right? Like, you have to be strong-willed, and it's not all roses. Like you mentioned, it's like the iceberg, right? You see the top, you don't see all the stuff underneath the water that it took to get there. And look, I am by no means have made it. I haven't reached the goal and what I want to do, but I would say is you also have to understand your purpose. I'm not a big believer in why. I think it's been one of those Hallmark card type things that have happened in our industry that it's a substitute for some real work ethic and stuff like that. But you got to have a purpose. Because your why, people say like their family and stuff like that, which of course that needs to be a driver. That's super important. It is for me, right? My kids and my wife and everything else. Like, that's important for me. That isn't my purpose, because I had a purpose prior to meeting my wife, to having my kids and stuff. Like, don't tell her to have a purpose. Don't tell her. I know. Valentine's Day is perfect time to have a conversation. But my thing is my purpose is to leave a legacy, to have an impact, and to have an impact, right? And so everything that I do drives to that, and I want to do good. I don't want to be known as just someone that was okay or whatever, is because, look, even people that are amazing and life-changing, when they're no longer here anymore, they're no longer here. And if there's nothing left behind, that person just fades away. And that's a big thing for me. I want to leave something behind. I want to have something that people remember or whatever. And that's something that I learned from, Gary Vee, because even though Gary Vee has been a big influence in my life, it's the same thing. Like, absolutely, you're not posting a million pieces of content a day. You shouldn't be on every platform, because at the end of the day, if you're on every platform and you're not doing anything, then it doesn't matter. You're just wasting time, right? So going back to, your original question of what I already said about consistency and getting started, is pick one thing. Pick Instagram, pick TikTok, pick Facebook, pick LinkedIn. Pick one channel to start with until you get comfortable understanding content, understanding engagement, understand that you just can't post and pray. You got to have strategy. You got to have planning behind all this stuff. Like, you got to understand your purpose. You got to understand where you're going. How do you attract audiences, right? This is where I get a little bit in the clouds, because it's stuff, and it's why I stand out, is because I think about these things. But like, from an originator standpoint, you've got to work back. What's your ultimate goal? What's your ultimate objectives, right? And then you work back, because, okay, I need to get that. Okay, what happens before this? Fantastic. What happens before that? Fantastic. Then you start going on, and finally you reach, the genesis of what you want to do and how you get started. And so if it's like social media, then you got to understand your brand, right? And brand is, like, a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I got my logo, I got my colors. That ain't your brand. That's your branding. But what is your brand, right? Like, for example, just because, Eric's been on the Next Level podcast, I think a couple of times, spoken and looking at your content, right? You have decided, like, you want to be memorable, right? That, like, so when someone says your name to somebody else or refers you, there's a feeling involved with that, right? There's an idea of what that is. That is the brand. It's what you leave behind. It's that impression that you are. So you got to understand, like, that. I have a worksheet that I that I give out to loan officers, just to make it very simple, just for them to understand, like, oh, okay, cool. This is like a real simple way to understand how to create that brand. So you got to do that. And then from that, once you understand your brand, which is your soul, right? And I really believe that. It's your marketing soul is your brand. Then you start creating your content, your graphics, and all of that other stuff. Do it yourself to learn how to do it. Don't start outsourcing things because they're never going to get it right. Right. Even the best agencies out there, I would say I'm pretty good, but like I can't just like I can't have a 30-minute with Eric and then all of a sudden I can start posting content for him because I think I understand him. Right. He needs to understand that first. And then once he understands his brand, then he could help me and coach me to do that output for him. But a lot of people are trying to, I think you kind of alluded to this. People try to go to shortcut land, right? They try to take a freaking, get a bus ticket to shortcut land, to Hackville. How do I hack this? How do I shortcut this? And that's not going to set you up for success. It may get you some short-term results. But again, this goes back to building that solid foundation so that you actually are putting in the work and understand what it takes. And then once you've had success, then you go out and start focusing on your actions that matter, your money-making activities, and outsource the marketing. You outsource all these other things and invest in this, like invest in yourself. Understand that the biggest and best investment that you're ever going to make is in your personal development.
Yeah, I mean, you said so many good things. I mean, you went from working without seeing action results and continuing to work. I think that's the hardest part about this industry, specifically, whether it's mortgage or real estate sales or investing, is like sometimes it takes a year more. Like if you're a real estate investor, you can be schmoozing up a seller for 3 years before they actually sell you their house. If you're a real estate agent, you could be working with a buyer for 6 months, showing them tons of houses, putting in offers, not getting outbid. Like you need to be able to work without seeing results. And that's the hardest part about what we do. And then when you think about that as far as your marketing goes, it allows you, and you get over the fact that, listen, I won't see results. It allows you to think bigger, which allows you to be consistent and ultimately successful at it. And then, I mean, so let's say I start posting, right? And I'm taking the first initial steps. Oh yeah, by the way, you mentioned choosing one channel, right? I always recommend loan officers or anybody in any industry. Should I be on TikTok? Should I be on Instagram? I heard Facebook is no good anymore. I got to put all my energy into TikTok. Start where you currently are, right? Start what you currently use every single day. So if you're a TikTok person, blow TikTok up. I'm not a TikTok person. I'm not at all. I actually don't even log in unless I'm posting. I don't scroll through TikTok. I scroll through Instagram. So I double down on Instagram. And then, at some point, then you can add a second channel and then a third platform. It's kind of like the buckets of your business. Like you don't need to be consumer direct, referral, work open houses, do mailers all at once. Like pick one or two, and then you can expand down the line. That's my recommendation when it comes to choosing the platforms. But what I was saying is, let's say I start posting, and because we're talking about seeing results, what do you think is a sign that marketing is working?
Wow, that's actually a really great question. And look, it's going to be different for everyone, but here's what I'll say. One is and it's hard because like the best results of marketing working, unfortunately, you don't get any analytics on that. Right. I can't track it a lot, right? Because what a lot of people do, how many likes did I get? How many comments did I get? And blah, 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 blah. I'll tell you a story, right? So, and this is, this basically answers your how it's working, right? I could go in there and I could say, oh, great. Like I routinely have LinkedIn posts that have like 25,000 views and blah, blah, blah. Great. Right. So let's look at that. I could be happy about that. Right. And it's a journal. Other people don't get to see that. So there's no vanity involved with that. Or I get like 10 likes or 20 likes, 75 likes or something like that. 100, 200 comments on a post, whatever. I could track and measure that like, hey, there's engagement. And then I could equate engagement to results or, whatever, as it working. when you start getting messages, calls, emails, things referencing your content, that's when you know that it's working, right? And this is one thing that I always say, your marketing happens before people even know who you are, right? And before they've even reached out. And here's the story is that I was speaking at an event in Arizona, and it was like, I don't know, it was probably like 90, it was like 85, 90% agents, mortgage professionals title. And so I did, I can't remember what I was talking about. I talked about some marketing strategy or something like that. And someone came up to me. This guy had never, um, never liked, never sent me a message, never liked any of my content. Because generally, like people that like interface with me on social media, I'll tend to remember their name or their face or something like that. Never commented, never shared, never did anything. You know, like as far as I know, the guy didn't exist, right? Because there was no engagement with me whatsoever.
Right.
He comes up to me after the event and he's like, "Hey, I just, you know, I just wanted, he's like, hey, can I take a picture with you? You know, can I shake your hand?" He's like, "Oh my God, this is like meeting a celebrity. Like you changed my life. You did this one podcast episode, and then I followed your videos on Snapchat and da 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 da. And I literally took what you said into play. And like 3 months later, like I built my entire business off everything you just said. Now I didn't charge for like this is just content I put out there, right? And so like, and it may sound like, oh, that's a great story, you know, about you or whatever. But the point is that like that's it, I don't get that, right? You know what I mean? So like, unless someone tells me, I'm hoping that I'm making an impact, right?
Right.
I'm hoping that I'm doing the right things. I'm hoping that it's working. And yes, I could tell some verifiable results, like associate lead costs. If I get people, you know, signed up, if I get people to do what I want them to do as a marketer, then I know that, hey, I could track that. I could measure that. But it's that impact, right? It's something like that made, like, I remember that story. I remember like it was yesterday. I remember everything about that encounter because I don't think of myself that way. And when that happens to you and you just realize like, one is like, how many people was he able to affect, right? How many families did he help? How, you know, just it, because it is like because if you've had someone ever make an impact in your life for the better, where it's changed you, it's like helped you do more, do whatever. Like bringing up Gary Vee, he made a huge impact. If it wasn't for that book, I mean, I don't know, I may not have gotten the more. This whole thing could have been, I don't know, right? And that guy who I helped wouldn't have been helped, right? So that's what I think about this, is that it's a pebble in a pond, right? You create ripples with what you put out there in the world. And so I use that just as an example, as that's when you know that what you're doing is working, is when you have someone that comes up, and it doesn't have to be like that. It could be just say, hey, you did this and this happened. You helped me do that stuff, or I saw this, or you noticed that, like, hey, and this is where like measurement happens. Like before you start anything, you got to measure it, right? So like, where were you? What's your delta? Like, where was I? Where did I start? And then like, where am I at now? Right? And what's the difference between the two? And that's how you know, is like, all right, I generally didn't have this many leads before. I didn't have this many calls. I didn't have any of this stuff. So that's when you know that it's working, is when you start seeing the results. But unfortunately, you won't know until you start seeing the results. So like I said, that there's been people that have come up to me and have been, you know, big supporters of mine or fans or whatever you want to call them, and I didn't know any of them, and I didn't know any of that, right? So that's what I'm saying, is that whatever you're putting out there, someone is seeing it. So that's the first thing you need to understand. Someone sees it. And so even if they don't comment, and even if they don't share, or even if they don't like, if they don't do anything that you want them to do, it doesn't mean that you're not making an impact. It doesn't mean that that it's not working, right? And so that's what I would say is that you'll know that it's working when you start. And I know, as I'm saying, I'm like, oh, well, that's a completely obvious answer, right? Like, duh, of course, like, if I start seeing results. But meaning is like, you have to understand where you came from. And you can't equate it to other things. That's when you'll start seeing, that is what I would say, is when you start getting the messages from the people that haven't engaged with you ever. When you start getting a DM or emails, texts, whatever it happens to be from people that you don't know or people that have never done anything or engaged, that is when you know that your marketing is working.
Because for every person that reaches out to you and says, "Oh, you made an impact," there's another 10 that you made an impact, but they just haven't reached out to you yet. They might not be liking or commenting or sharing or doing any of that stuff. But the reason I asked that question is we were talking about working without seeing results. And I think a lot of times what discourages people from social media or just marketing in general is, and I'm sure this applies to multiple areas of your business, is they don't know the results they should be looking for. And in fact, they think it's only working when I get 1 million followers or 1 million likes or 1 million shares. I know for me, I've been, again, in the business 7 years, basically marketing for those 7 years on social media pretty consistently. And I know for me, I didn't see loans coming in, but I did go to a networking event. And I remember this one story. I went to a networking event about 45 minutes from me, didn't really know anybody there. And somebody popped out from around the corner of this hallway in this venue and was like, "You're not your average lender." And I was like, that's pretty cool. So when you start to get, "I know you, I've seen your stuff," or you get the comment under your post, "Wow, this really helped me," or the message, "Hey, you really inspired me to do something." It's funny because you've already been making an impact way before that. You just got the first reach out. And I think that's part of the reason why all this stuff is hard for people and it's hard to stay consistent, is because they're looking for a borrower to call them. And I'm going to be honest, I have 15,000 followers on Instagram, maybe 2,000 on TikTok, whatever the number is, whatever my following is. I can only count a handful of times where a complete stranger has reached out to me and said, "I need a loan." And even those complete strangers, it was like, "My cousin is so-and-so. She shared their post with me," right? So I think I've always developed my marketing strategy, and you talked about this as well. You talked about the importance of kind of boiling everything down, right? Like, for me, I always recommended, and I always teach, like, start with your target audience. I made a decision many years ago when it comes to my marketing. My target audience is not consumers. It's real estate professionals. Because real estate professionals will speak to consumers. And so all of the content that I put out is with that in mind. Everything starts with my target audience, my mission statement, my brand. You spoke about brand. I mean, Jeff Bezos has one of the best ways of explaining brand that I've ever heard. And he said, your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. That to me, like, completely sums up everything that we need to talk about when it comes to branding. Everybody thinks it's the colors and the logo and all that nonsense, but it's like, it's when people hear your name, their feeling, and you explain this so beautifully, the feeling that they get or the thoughts that they have, that's your brand. And I did that exercise. It's funny because I didn't do the sheet that you're specifically referencing, which, by the way, if anybody wanted that sheet, can they email you?
Yeah, Fraser@latepops.com. I'll be happy to give it to them. Yeah.
There you go. The little takeaway for you guys. But I didn't fill out a sheet or anything like that, but I sat down and I was trying to be a student of this whole marketing game. And I realized, like, all right, I want to put out content. The next question is, who do I want to see it? So target audience, who is my target audience? I laid that out. Okay, here's my brand, but what do I stand for? What's my mission statement? So not your average lender, that's like the brand. But then my mission statement is to remove average from real estate by adding value. So now I have a target audience, who I'm talking to, what I'm trying to do every single day, and, some sort of branding behind it. That's where it all started for me. And then it morphed into a million things. Platforms change. My content strategy gets thrown out the freaking window because we went from long form the short form, and then it's a never ending, unfortunately, because it pisses me off. It's a never ending journey, right? It's like every time I feel like I have it dialed in, something changes. But you explained that very, very well, and I appreciate that, because that has been my experience. So I know it's true. So before I let you go, I've been, and you've been around the block. You've worked in many different areas of our industry. So you're the perfect person to ask this question. And I'm trying to ask this to every single one of our guests, because this business has changed my life, and that's why I started this whole podcast. I went from, a high school kid that all his work experience was baking bagels to, a volunteer EMT for a year. And then I threw all of that stuff out the window because I saw that I might be able to do this, and my life is completely different. The people I talk to, the lifestyle that I live, it's really cool. And I owe this industry everything. I'm in debt to this industry, is like I always say, pun intended. But you're the perfect person to ask this question because of your experience. What do you love about this industry?
So there's two things, and because to me they're equal. One is, first and foremost, is that when and this is what I want people to really hold on to, especially when times are tough and they're struggling, is this is one of the few industries ever that when we all do our jobs right, that we are changing someone's life for the better, and could change a generation, right? Countless stories of people trying to get out of like bad neighborhoods or bad, living situations and stuff like that. And maybe they were turned down or whatever, and they finally find someone that was able to make it work, to achieve that American dream, right? Because it truly is a dream, right? Like people like, oh man, I want to own a car, or I want to have this or the new iPhone. Like it's wants. But I'm talking about dreams. I'm talking about things that can change their whole family dynamic based off of what we do. And it's one of the very few industries that I could think of that does that when we do our jobs right. That creates stickiness, right? So that's important. The second part, what I love is that no matter your background, no matter your race, gender, right? And anything and everything, education, you can make yourself into as big a success as you want to in this industry, no matter where you came from, who you are, who your family was, anything, right? Think of all the adversity that someone's going to go through growing up, coming in, whatever that happens to be. There are no gatekeepers for this industry. You can make yourself a success out of nothing. And going back to my mom, she started as a receptionist in this industry, right? And again, she worked from a receptionist. She worked her way up to being the first woman CEO of a mortgage company in this country, and she ended up owning one of the oldest mortgage brands in this country. And she started from nothing. No college education, only high school, single mom, just, like she did it. She's that American story. And that changed me. That changed and in effect allowed me to do what I do. And so there's not really a lot of industries where you can do that like you can in ours. And so that, and the fact that we can change people's lives with what we do are the two things of why I love this industry.
Amen. I mean, there you guys have it, Mr. Jason Frazier, the man, the myth, the legend. I appreciate you coming on today. It was a really good talk, and I think our listeners got a lot out of it.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate it. I hope I didn't drone on too much. Look, I have a passion for what I do. I have a passion for this industry, and I want to win, and I want to be aligned with people that want to win and want to be the best versions. Be the best that they could be in what they do.
Cool. And you already gave out your email, but just give it to everybody one more time in case they want to reach out for that branding cheat sheet.
Yeah. So it's look, everyone can find me on social media. Look, Facebook and LinkedIn, I'm the most active on, but I'm on pretty much everything. But Frazier at leadpops.com. Feel free to email me. Happy to, and look, give me some time because I do get a ton of email every day. I hate email, but like that's the easiest way to get a hold of me and be happy to give out the branding checklist if someone's interested.
Awesome. Thank you, brother. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Miss.